You're listening to Season 3 of the Fairways People podcast, where we share inspiring stories, meaningful conversations, and the voices behind our charity. Each episode offers a closer look at the people and passion that drive us. Hosted by Fairways Managing Director Gareth Webb.
Hello and welcome to another Fairways People podcast. And today my special guest is Dan Hughes. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Gareth.
Thanks for coming on board. So Dan, we met probably last year. I know you did some sort of work with some of our training team and management team, and then you come along to our conference. So I know you're massive on and passionate about breath technique and breathing techniques, and you are the British version of Wim Hof. So, but over to you. I'll let you introduce yourself. So,
thank you. Yeah, I'm not quite sure about the British version of Wim Hof, but anyway. I'm Dan Hughes. I am the co-founder with my wife of a company called VitaIV, which is essentially a health and well-being business. And it's centered around two things really, which you've kind of highlighted. One is breath work, and I'll explain what that means in a second. And the other is cold water immersion therapies. And both of those components form part of the Wim Hof method. So I'm a Wim Hof method instructor. But I'm also an Oxygen Advantage advanced breathwork coach and a conscious connected breathwork instructor as well. So, wherever the breath lands, I know a fair bit about it. And I came into all of this through, quite serious illness, actually. So my background was in the corporate environment, and unfortunately fell very ill, and I'm sure I'll get the chance to sort of give you my story a little later, but it was breath work and cold immersion techniques, cold showers initially, that really accelerated my recovery. I was diagnosed with long COVID, and it was those two things that really sort of accelerated my getting better. Wow. The breathwork element is, it kind of falls into three parts really. There's a breath work that we run on a regular basis, which you've experienced actually, and a lot of the team have experienced, where we take you through a breathwork journey, which is really good for you from a health and wellbeing point of view. Gives you a huge amount of new energy. It boosts your immune system, balances your nervous system, helps you sleep. So that's one part of breath work. Then there's the functional breath work, which is learning how to use your breath in the most efficient way through your body to help with anxiety and stress, or focus and concentration, or sport performance and recovery, or sleep again. So a kind of a foundational breath technique in order to get the most out of your body, because let's face it, we're all tuned into nutrition and exercise and hydration and all the rest of it, but we pay very little attention to our breath, and yet we breathe 25,000 times a day. So small incremental changes make a huge difference. And then the bit that sits in the middle of those two things, so we've got the health and wellbeing aspect, we've got the functional breathing aspect, is the more emotionally linked, nervous system balance, trauma informed, spiritual side of breathwork as well, which is an area that we're becoming more and more interested in, because there are so many opportunities to help people who have locked trauma away, for example, and we can help unlock that trauma without having to take them back to the events that caused that trauma in the first place. It's a subconscious reprogramming. So hugely powerful, and something that I've dedicated my life to going forward.
Brilliant, absolutely. So there's lots to explore there, and you're absolutely right. You joined our management training last year, and you did a breathwork session with us, and it was amazing. And I didn't realise how much the way you breathe affects all the different parts of your body. It's really interesting the way you explain that. So, but we'll come on to that. So, thank you, Dan. So, as I do with most of my guests, I ask you just to sort of let's go back in time and talk a little bit about your background, your childhood, and where you grew up.
Okay. So almost all my life I've been in the Hampshire area. So originally in Wickham and then moved to Botley. Am I allowed to say that I went to school in Southampton?
Oh,
Oh,
Dan,
I
you just
know.
ruined it.
I know, but you know, I've
But you're
moved
back.
away from the dark zone. I'm in the light now, in the Pompey area. So and yeah, a very happy childhood actually, and a very adventurous childhood. We, you know, as a family, we did lots of camping and sailing and stuff like that. I was very, you know, very fortunate. Did loads in the Boy Scouts. Set up a venture scout unit when I got to my sort of teens. And then, as a result of that kind of adventurous spirit, ran or was involved in rather a couple of quite significant expeditions on behalf of the Natural History Museum, collecting biological samples for the
Wow.
for the museum, and I was studying biology at the time. Um, Sort of fast forward into you know, into later life, and you know, jumped on the career ladder because my dad pointed at me and said, you need to get yourself a proper job, not floating around the world doing all these things catching spiders. And so I did. I got, you know, got myself on the treadmill of life.
And so just touching on that, you spoke about biology and being Indiana Jones, not Indiana Jones. But, so what made you sort of get into that? You know, what was your interest in that?
I don't think it was a conscious thing really. I you know, because I'd spent a lot of time in my childhood camping in the woods and you know, doing those kind of adventurous things. It was a natural progression to, you know, to get involved in these kind of expeditions. And I've always been fascinated in biology. You know, as a kid, I would spend hours and hours just staring into the pond, watching what was going on in the pond, or you know, or catching things in, you know, in a jar and watching what was going on. So I've always been interested in that. Always been interested in geography as well, and so the two things kind of, you know, came together. And you know, I ran an expedition down to the northern half of the Sahara Desert in
Wow.
Morocco, and then also ran an expedition across the centre of Iceland as well. So two extreme
Extremes. Yeah.
environments, but you know, the principles of teamwork and you know, looking after each other and defining clear roles for people. All the things I learned in the Boy Scouts really came into play during those moments. So that was quite interesting watching the dynamic of a team.
Brilliant. Oh wow, interesting. Yeah, I bet you've got some stories to tell.
Yeah.
So when you spoke about getting into the corporate world, so talk to me a little bit about that journey and then what led to, I guess, a pretty significant moment in your life I think it was in your 30s. So yeah, over to you.
Yeah. So as I said, my father, you know, he's no longer with us. He when he pointed at you as his son, my brother and I used to quake in our boots, and you know, he said, you need to stand on your own 2 feet, get yourself a proper job. So I actually ended up working in the marina industry for many years. Gosport Marina being my first job, and progressed through that particular business. Moved all over the country managing marina facilities, which is, you know, effectively parking places for boats. We're all fairly familiar with that in this part of the world. And thoroughly enjoyed it. Great job again, working with a rich team of people, getting involved in, you know, all sorts of things, 24/7 business. And that led to you know, to senior management positions in, you know, in other businesses in that kind of marina environment. Lots of travel, uh, which then became international travel because we started a consultancy business, and the whole thing kind of snowballed. And however, in my late 30s, I was going through a really difficult time at a personal level and fell quite ill. And didn't really understand, why I was ill until I started to be tested, and I was diagnosed with cancer in my late 30s, which completely, just knocked me sideways. My personal life was falling apart. I was in a marriage that was not good, and was slowly falling to pieces. I was throwing all my energy and effort into my work, and then of course I had to stop all of that, and all the things that kept me happy, kept me alive, all the outdoor stuff, all the cycling and the sailing and the getting in the sea and all that sort of thing, just had to stop whilst I went through my treatment. Just coming out of my treatment, and they discovered a secondary cancer, and I had to start all over again. So I went into a really, really dark place for quite some time, whilst I tried to rebuild my life. And I'm pleased to say that I did, and got myself better, and started back on that corporate ladder again, thinking that was the right thing to do. At this point, I was on my own, and that was really the only thing that I had to kind of throw my energy into. And worked really hard, progressed through various businesses to a senior level, board level. And again, lots of international travel and lots of stress, and managing teams all over the world, and all sorts of different projects going on in all sorts of different time zones, and all the intricacies of working in different countries with different cultures and all the rest of it. Just layered stress upon stress upon stress. But like a lot of us, wore that badge of stress and working too hard, and if 16 hours wasn't enough, I'll do 18 hours today. Wore that as a badge of honor, which now I can reflect upon it is just nonsense, absolute nonsense. So I wasn't at all surprised when COVID came along, given my medical history and my immune system, that I caught COVID, and I caught it really badly. So much so that I think I probably picked it up on an aeroplane, and I collapsed in a hotel bathroom in the Middle East, and I was there for a long time. Nobody knew where I was. Those people that cared about me were very worried about me because I hadn't been in contact. The client I'd gone to see was very upset because I hadn't turned up, etc., etc. Got myself home, and I never properly recovered from it. I was, after 20 months of not being able to go to work, I was diagnosed with long COVID, and again, I just thought my world was going to fall apart, because I'd been in that place before where I was unable to work. I was unable to do the things that kept me alive and gave me the energy. My poor wife, she was at her wit's end. She didn't know quite what to do, because a good day for me in the middle of it all was getting from the bedroom down to the sofa. I was that exhausted, all sorts of things going on in my body that I just didn't understand. And it wasn't until a good friend of mine phoned me up and said, Dan, I've just finished reading this book by this guy called Wim Hof. You ought to take a read of it, because apparently it's really good for fatigue and insomnia and nervous system balance and energy levels and all the rest of it. Give it a read. And on the very same day, my then employer phoned up and said, as part of the staff wellbeing program we've organised for a Wim Hof method instructor to come in, you really ought to come along. We've saved you a space. Apparently it's really good for energy levels and sleep and insomnia and nervous system balance, and all the things that you're suffering from. Come and give it a go. So I'd never heard of this guy, and on the same day 2 people mentioned his name. Extraordinary. Wow. So I did some research, went along, and to cut a very long story short, I I decided to train online just purely to give me something to do. I was sat at home, unable to do any form of work. So just getting up in the morning, doing a little bit of study was giving me a bit of a purpose. Eventually qualified, did my practical assessment when I was well enough, and with the full intention of going back to work. Full intention of going back to work. This was just for me, just a personal journey for me whilst I recovered. And I was signed off, signed back to work by my doctor, and had a decision to make. And I decided that actually I would be much better off putting to good use the lessons that I'd learned to help other people, rather than jumping back on that corporate treadmill and making other people very wealthy whilst I slowly killed myself. That was the discussion I had in my head. So it was an easy choice, but that's how I ended up being where I am now. I've subsequently gone on and trained in other modalities of breath work and what have you. And, been very fortunate that a lot of people are very interested in what we're able to do and how we're able to help them. Yeah,
definitely. Wow, that is such a journey, a very unique up and down journey. So, just going back slightly, so when you were unwell, and like you said, two people mentioned about Wim Hof and stuff. When you actually did engage in that process, I'm guessing the cold bath and the breathing, did you find that instant sort of change, or did you really that instant benefit? Did it?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And what actually happened was, as a result of long COVID in excuse me in 2022, was not fully understood, and I don't think it's fully understood even now. There are 200 different symptoms, and you can have any combination of them in order to be diagnosed with long COVID. So my GP at the time, who I've got 100% nothing but praise for, said, why don't you sign yourself up to a couple of the research programs and see what comes out of those? So I signed up to 2 university hospital research programs. And one of the things that one of the programs was suggesting I did was a practice called NSDR, so non-sleep deep rest, which is essentially sitting still, focusing on your breath, not trying to nap, not trying to meditate, just literally bringing yourself out of your head into your body. And I would do that for 2 or 3 times a day for 5 minutes. And something shifted. I felt different each time I did it. I can't tell you how, but something just felt different. I felt perhaps that I had a little bit more energy or a little bit more cognitive ability. One of my symptoms was extreme temperature all of a sudden. So I go from normal to roasting hot, in 10 seconds, absolutely awash with sweat. And the only way I could really cool myself down was to go upstairs and have a quick shower, cold shower. So those 2 things, breath work in a form and cold exposure in a cold shower.
Yeah.
I was practicing those before my good friend phoned me up and my employer phoned me up and talked about Wim Hof. And it wasn't until I started reading his book that I realized that those 2 things, breath work and cold immersion, are 2 of the 3 pillars of the Wim Hof method. The other one is a really strong mindset, working on your inner ability to do anything if you put your mind to it. So yeah, that's how I kind of came about finding those things were benefiting me, almost by default, really.
Wow. Okay. I only tried a ice bath for the first time last week, actually. I thought it was amazing. Yeah. So it was the plunge truck.
Yes.
A lady called Kate Thorne set that up, and we brought them down to our lakeside just to promote it a bit. And yeah, it's really good. I think it was 2 degrees, but they're really good at talking you through your breathing and immersing yourself. And then they got a sauna, which is nice. You can go in the sauna after.
Absolutely, yeah. But you cold water swim as well, don't you? So you're getting the benefits of.
Yeah. absolutely sea dipping. But this was obviously a lot colder. But yeah, I thought it was really good. I felt really good the rest of the day as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes a massive difference to how you feel. But actually it doesn't need to be 2 degrees. If you've got a shower at home and you turn it to cold,
yeah,
get it as cold as you can. That's good enough. Equally, getting in the sea, even in the middle of summer, at 12, 13 degrees, you're getting the benefits of getting your body colder than it's used to, which is triggering a whole load of physiological changes. Yeah.
well, yeah. Okay, so out of all this challenge and upset, and as well as sort of doing the course around the Wim Hof stuff, I guess VTIV was born, co-created, like you say. So talk to me a little bit about VTIV and sort of what you offer and what you do.
Yeah. So once I'd qualified as a Wim Hof method instructor and taken the decision that I wanted to do something that was going to help other people, I quickly realized that actually there wasn't a sustainable business model in just offering Wim Hof workshops or experiences. So my wife and I both trained with Oxygen Advantage to become functional breathwork coaches. My wife is a reflexologist and has been for 30 years, and we combined all of our expertise and our knowledge together and created VTIV, which is primarily a health and wellbeing business. Um, I've I've been doing lots of cold water immersion training for marina businesses because I know lots of people in that business. And actually, the news this week has been shocking with half a
Deaths.
dozen children losing their
Yeah.
lives as a result of cold water shock. So again, just putting expertise into those situations has been an important part of our work in the last 18 months or so as well. Um, we offer regular breathwork classes in and around Hampshire and West Sussex. We've got one in the Pyramids in Portsmouth every other Monday evening, which is a full hour of kind of experiential breathwork, loud music, verbal cues, in order to help boost your energy, help balance your nervous system, and help you get really good sleep. We run regular Wim Hof method workshops, so if you wanted to come and understand what that's all about and how the breath work and the mindset and the cold exposure all link together, that's something that we offer. As well as functional breath training as well. So we do one-to-one training with people that perhaps have a medical condition such as severe asthma or a respiratory issue, and we help them understand how to get the power back in their breath. Right through to Olympic teams. We've just finished working with a world-class program team headed towards the Olympics. Right through to senior leaders and high pressure sales teams and corporate environments, helping those people use their breath to drive productivity and concentration and focus. And in fact, the work that we've done with your senior management team has been linked to not only helping them deal with their day-to-day world, but also imparting some of the techniques that they've learned through to the children that you care for as well. So if somebody is having a difficult time, they can bring their breath into play to help calm the situation down. So it's so varied.
Varied,
It's a
yeah.
really difficult question to answer, but hopefully that gives you a flavour of the sorts of things that we do and that we offer.
Absolutely. And I know you sort of travel around, but where are you based as well? Have you got a
So
base where you work from?
yeah, we've got a little studio in our house in just outside Emsworth,
Okay.
where we do very small group sessions or one-to-one training. But I've worked all over the country, and in fact we're regularly travelling to all four corners of the country, delivering training or running courses or classes.
Cool, cool. So what you do, I think, is brilliant and it's quite unique. and we know the benefits, and I've felt them benefits firsthand. But what's your why? Why do you do this? What's your why? What gets you out of bed?
Yeah, I think these days we all live in our heads. You know, there's so much going on. We're constantly bombarded with information, and you know, the algorithms working to try and influence us, and you know, stress levels are high, and business isn't easy, and you know, all those things are all, you know, extra pressures on our system. And if you take the nervous system, you know, in a normal scenario, you've got deep relaxation down here, and you've got heightened stress here. Now, what's happening is, over time, you know, we're layering new stress on existing stress and keep building, and that becomes the new normal. And then we add a bit more, and that becomes the new normal. And our nervous system has to balance itself. So our rest and digest, our parasympathetic nervous system, chases the heightened state to try and maintain a little bit of equilibrium. And what happens is that as it's chasing, your relaxed state becomes normalized, where you used to be highly stressed. So you're genuinely not able to rest, you're genuinely not able to recover, and your body isn't able to restore itself in the way that it needs to. So in answer to your question, I think the biggest thing that we can do is help people reset their nervous system, get them connected back into their body, understanding what's going on in their body, and allowing that 80% of information that our brain is processing comes from the body. The other 20% is outside influence. So connecting back to your body and understanding what's going on, you know, why the body is feeling the way it is, how trauma is stored in the body that can be unlocked, how to, you know, stay healthy and energized and sleep better through all of the processes that we offer. So I think that's our biggest, you know, our biggest why is to help other people reconnect with their own inner power and their own body, and get control of their nervous system, which is otherwise out of control.
Yeah, no, amazing. The way you explain that as well, like you say, the chaos of everyday life where things have increased. Yeah, when you talk, I think, yeah, I need to do some more deep relaxation. But no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah.
The thing, sorry to cut across you, but
No.
thing about all of this is that as long as you've got a nose on the front of your face, it is accessible to everybody. You know, what we're talking about largely is normalizing your breathing. Most people, when they're in a heightened state, are breathing high up into the chest way too quickly, and that is driving anxiety and driving stress. So as long as you've got a nose on the front of your face and a few very simple techniques, you can immediately dial down that feeling of overwhelm just with a few breaths. It's almost instant.
Definitely. And I remember when you come to see us, that you explained that really well. And then I'm going to say a test, but you got us all to do a small test where we sort of worked out how our breathing was at the time. I can't exactly remember how you did, but it was and then you showed a scale, and I think mine was like at the bottom. But I think, as you said, I think mine is where I just breathe in short breaths, and I'm holding everything here. And but the way you explained it was like, oh wow, Christ, yeah, that really makes sense of you know, and that anxiety possibly that you're carrying all the time, and you're not really taking in that deep breath. Like you said, was it 25,000 breaths a day or whatever?
25, 25,000 breaths a day. And actually, if any of the audience wants a free breath guide, all they've got to do is go on our website and just give us their email address, and it will be emailed out to them as a PDF. So, and in that breath guide are 3 really simple exercises that almost anybody can do for different things, whether that's helping with relaxation, whether that's giving yourself a little boost of oxygen to help with concentration, or whether that's helping you relax and get ready for sleep. So yeah, that's a little free guide that's out there if anybody's interested in
Thank you. Yeah, and I know
grabbing a
another
copy.
big concept you're in big favour of. I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but taping the mouth when you go to sleep. And I know at the time you gave us all tape, and me and my wife, we went home actually, and we did it for. I only did it for a few nights. Again, I've got into the habit of not doing it, but the difference it made. I woke up a few times and it was across my face, um, but the difference, you know, and you can notice how you know, where you really do. Breathe, especially myself, I'm aware of that. I breathe a lot through my mouth, and actually the importance of going through your nose and getting that. But that was a really good tip that you give us on that. But you're really keen on that, aren't you? That's a big.
Yeah, yeah. I've been mouth taping for a long time, and yeah, I genuinely put my mouth tape on, just do a few very gentle breaths, and then, you know, before I know it, the alarm's gone off because it's morning. The following morning, I get proper sleep, and when you sleep well, everything else becomes easier. You know, if you're not
Yeah,
getting good quality sleep, life becomes quite difficult. You know, you don't have the
stressful.
energy, you don't have the cognitive ability, your memory is impaired, and everything just feels a bit more tricky than it really needs to be. So again, on our website, there's loads of free resource, free information in the blogs. Go and have a search around and find something that is of interest, including there's a blog in the website, you know, all about mouth taping and why it's so good for you.
Excellent, thank you. And um, another question I ask, I guess, is sort of, what's your core values? You know, you spoke about why you do what you do. And I always say this, and I have to keep saying that. I'll keep saying that as well. If you were the sticker up you used to get, and you had the words that would go through, if you were to open, you know, what's the core values that run through you, Dan? Would you say?
Great question. I think authentic. You know, I am who I am. I'm not trying to be anybody. There are people out there who have done a 2 day or 2 hour online course on breathwork and, you know, promote themselves as a qualified person. You have to be so careful with, you know, with using your breath and training other people how to use your breath, because you can really upset the balance. So authentic. I think, you know, I've got real lived experience from all this as well. So I talk from a place of not just having a certificate on the wall. I talk from a place of genuinely understanding how powerful yet how simple it can be.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important part. And I think, you know, I never used to think of myself in this way, because, you know, it was all about the corporate world and, you know, driving forward a business and performance and all the rest of it. But deep down, I am hugely compassionate towards other people. And, you know, I don't think you can be in the well-being space unless you genuinely care about other people. And that's the reason I threw away, you know, a significant role with a big salary and all the trappings that go with a senior level job, in order to share my experience and my knowledge with other people. And I think, yeah, compassion is probably the third word that you'd see in that sticker rock.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I agree. I witnessed that firsthand, especially when you come down, very compassionate and supportive and engaging when you met our team and when I met you. So thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, last question. We touched on it a little bit, but like again, you know, with the chaos of everyday life and our own mental health and stuff like that, what do you do for your own well-being, or what do you recommend? So I'm guessing cold water therapy and stuff like that. But what else do you do?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of people ask me this question. What you're promoting all this stuff and teaching all this stuff. What do you do? Cold water therapy, 100%. Whether that is a cold shower, whether that's running into the sea, or whether that is getting in the ice bath. Now, with the ice bath, I flip a coin now the night before. So I don't want my body to become fully adapted to the cold, because part of the reason for getting cold is to rebuild some of the ancient mechanisms in your body that keep you healthy and fit. So I flip a coin now. If it's heads, I'm in. If it's tails, I leave it for the next day.
Okay.
So cold therapy it is an absolute is an
So,
absolute
so,
non-negotiable for me when the coin is on the right side.
so in terms of cold therapy, so I was going to say, do you do it every day? But obviously you flip a coin, but either way, you can do it. That you suggest doing it that regularly, do you? For your
Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I think 2 or 3 times a week is a really nice balance. And actually, interestingly, when you start flipping a coin, that's about where it lands. Um, so yeah, what you don't want to be doing is getting into freezing cold water every day, because your body is highly adaptable and will get very used to it very quickly. And then all the benefits of those old survival instincts and old survival mechanisms that you're trying to turn on by getting cold just are turned on all the time. I would suggest 2 or 3 times a week. I do breath work every day. So before I get out of bed, before I pick up a phone and the whole world starts draining my energy,
Yeah.
then I do several rounds of breath work in bed. And that I've missed maybe a handful of days over the last 4 years, and I know the days that I've missed my breath work, I've felt very different, a little bit dysregulated. And then outside of those sorts of things, it's being outside in nature, whether that's on my mountain bike, walking the dog, running, a little bit of sailing. Just I love being outside in nature, in whatever form that takes. That's where I get my energy, my release.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. So we recommend what I'd say cold ice baths, but what do you call it? Cold water therapy.
Cold water therapy, yeah. 90 seconds in a cold shower at the end of your shower. So finishing on cold will do you the world of good a couple of times a week.
Brilliant. Thank you. Right. So everyone start doing that. So in terms of if anyone wants to, like you say, look up that information you said that's free on you, or look at how they can book you for team events, corporate stuff, or come along to one-to-one sessions, or the pyramids, like you said in Portsmouth. What's your website, Dan, so people can find you?
So the website is vitaev.co.uk, which is VITAEVI, vitaev.co.uk. And on there, there's all sorts of information, there's all sorts of offerings and what have you. Interestingly, the classes that we run at the Pyramids in Southsea on every other Monday, your first class is always free. We want people to come and experience this stuff for themselves. So by charging people for their first class, we've kind of removed that barrier. Come along. There's a little bit of health information that we need to collect from you first, just to make sure it's safe for you to do. But come along, experience it, feel the benefits, and hopefully you'll be hooked on your breath. VitaV, just out of interest, sounds an unusual name for a business, but it's Latin for life force, which is what all of this stuff gives you. It gives you this unbelievable amount of new energy and an ability just to go through life with a very different view. So yeah, we're also on all the social channels, that sort of thing. VitaV official on Instagram and on LinkedIn as well. So check us out.
Excellent. Life Force. I like that. I wondered what VTIV standard for.
Oh.
Brilliant. Cool. Well, thanks, Dan. I appreciate your time. It's been brilliant talking to you. I appreciate your open honesty and sharing your personal story as well. So thank you for your time. And I know we've got something planned for later on in the year, which I'm looking forward to, but I'll keep that a secret in case some staff are listening. But yeah, thanks for your time, Dan.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate being asked to come along. Thank you.